Okay, let's think about this. What does it actually mean to be good at math? Like, beyond just getting calculations right or, knowing formulas, is it about speed? Or is it something, I don't know, deeper? Today, we're really going to dig into that. We're looking at Chapter 15 about the S8 math test, right from the official SAT study guide. And our goal here isn't just like a quick recap. We really want to pull out the key insights, the actual strategies, the stuff that matters straight from the source. This isn't only for people prepping for the SAT, by the way. It's really for anyone who's curious about what kind of math thinking is considered essential these days for college, careers, just life.
That's a really important point because the guide itself, it really stresses that the SAT math test focuses on what they call math that matters most.
Mhm.
It's trying to measure skills that are genuinely useful in the real world,
Yeah.
not just memorizing things by rote. So this deep dive, it's about what to study, sure, but also why it matters, and maybe most importantly, how to think about it effectively. For the test, yeah, but also beyond it.
Okay, so let's unpack that core idea. The guide seems pretty clear that being good at math for the SAT isn't just one thing. It mentions understanding concepts, procedural skill, and fluency. And it says they're complementary. What does that actually look like in practice? Is it like knowing the rules, but also knowing when to break them?
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. It's
Yeah.
sort of like you need the foundation, the
Yes.
scales, right? But you also need to be able to improvise. Can you see how a concept applies even if the problem looks different? Can you do the steps quickly? Yes, but also recognize when maybe a different approach is smarter. That's the fluency part. It's that interplay, that flexibility, understanding the structure underneath, not just the surface steps. And that's why the test uses these real-world type problems, often multi-step ones, right? To see if you can apply math outside of just a textbook exercise.
Yeah.
In science context, social science.
Right, right. Seeing the math in the world, not just on a page. That makes a lot more sense. So keeping that big picture in mind, where does the guide say the test really focuses its content? It mentions three main pillars and then like A+1. Okay, first up is heart of algebra. Sounds important. This is a big chunk of the test, right? It's about linear equations, systems of equations, functions, the basics, but really understanding them.
Exactly. It's foundational.
Yeah.
Representing situations with algebra, solving them, seeing the connections. The guide says it's 19 questions. About a third of the test, 33%.
Okay, a third on heart of algebra. Then there's problem solving and data analysis. This sounds super practical.
Oh, it is. Very much so. Ratios, percentages, proportions, analyzing stats, graphs, tables. It's what the guide calls quantitative literacy. Basically, can you understand and work with numbers and data as you encounter them, everywhere?
Like reading a news report or figuring out finances.
Precisely. It's about applying math reasoning in everyday contexts. And that's another big chunk, 17 questions, so about 29% of the test.
Makes sense. And the third main one, passport to advanced math. Sounds like it's gearing you up for, well, more advanced math.
You got it. This is where things get a bit more complex. We're talking quadratic equations, exponential functions, manipulating more complicated algebraic expressions. It's really laying the groundwork for calculus, for higher level statistics. That's 16 questions, roughly 28%.
So those three are the big ones. Heart of algebra, problem solving, and data analysis, and passport to advanced math. But you mentioned a +1.
Right, the additional topics in math. It's the smallest section, just 6 questions, about 10%. But it covers some really key geometry concepts, area, volume, circles, lines, angles, triangles, that kind of thing. And also a little bit of trigonometry, basic stuff like right triangles, maybe the unit circle. Important for STEM fields later on.
Interesting. And didn't the guide also mention something about cross-test scores? How does that fit in?
Yeah, good catch. Some of these math questions actually pull double duty. 8 of them contribute to an analysis in science score, and another 8 feed into analysis in history social studies.
Huh. So math isn't in its own little bubble on this test. It's shown as a tool for understanding other subjects, too.
Exactly. It reinforces that idea of math as a way of thinking, a lens for analysis.
Okay, so that's the what. We know the content areas now. Let's talk about the how, like the actual experience of taking the test. It's split into 2 parts.
Yep, 2 distinct sections. One where you can use a calculator and one where you can't.
All right, tell me about the calculator portion first. That's the longer one.
Right, 38 questions and you get 55 minutes. You can use a scientific or graphing calculator. They definitely recommend you have one.
But it's not just about punching numbers in, is it?
No, not at all. The guide really stresses this. The calculator is a tool. You have to be smart about when to use it. Some problems are complex, sure, and it helps. But other times, it might actually be faster to solve it without the calculator, using your understanding or number sense.
So using it wisely is a skill in itself. Okay. What kind of questions are in this section?
It's a mix. 30 multiple choice questions, and then 8 of those grid-in types where you write your own answer. Content-wise, it leans a bit towards data. We've got 11 Heart of Algebra, a big chunk of problem solving and data analysis, 17 questions there, then 7 Passport to Advanced Math, and 3 additional topics.
Got it. And the no calculator portion.
Shorter, right?
Much shorter. 20 questions in just 25 minutes. So speed and accuracy are really key here. And the questions tend to be more conceptual. They're testing if you really get the ideas, not just if you can compute quickly with a machine.
Makes sense. What's the breakdown here?
It's 15 multiple choice and 5 grid-ins. And look at the content. 8 Heart of Algebra, 0 problem solving, and data analysis. Oh, interesting. No data analysis without a calculator.
Right. Then Passport to Advanced Math, so more focus on the advanced algebra concepts here, and 3 additional topics.
Okay, you mentioned multiple choice and these grid-in questions. Can you explain the grid-ins a bit more? They sound different.
They are. Instead of picking A, B, C, or D, you actually calculate the answer. It could be a whole number, a fraction, a decimal, and you have to fill it into a special grid on the answer sheet.
So you bubble in the numbers.
Exactly. And this is crucial, something the guide points out. Just writing the answer in the little boxes above the bubbles, that doesn't count. You have to fill in the corresponding circles below.
That sounds like a place where people could easily slip up if they're not careful.
Absolutely. It's a small detail, but, getting it wrong means 0 points for that question, even if your math was perfect.
Okay, good tip. Now, strategy-wise, what about guessing? I remember hearing something about no penalty for wrong answers.
That's right. The official guide is very clear. There is no penalty for incorrect answers on multiple choice or our grid-ins, which means, logically, you should never leave a question blank, ever.
Seriously. Just guess.
Well, strategically guess if you can. Eliminate choices on multiple choice if possible. But if time's running out or you're truly stuck, yes, fill in an answer. You lose nothing if it's wrong, but you gain points if you happen to guess right.
That feels counterintuitive somehow, but makes total sense. There's no penalty. It changes the whole approach.
It really does. It's about maximizing every possible point.
Yeah.
But, the goal isn't just random guessing.
Right. The guide isn't saying don't bother studying, just guess.
Exactly. It's saying use your knowledge first, eliminate answers, make educated guesses. But don't leave bubbles blank out of fear. It's a safety net.
Speaking of safety nets, doesn't the test booklet itself give you some help, like formulas?
It does, yeah. Right at the beginning of each math section, there's a box called Mathematics Reference Information. It has things like the area and circumference of a circle, area of rectangles and triangles, the Pythagorean theorem, A plus B quadrilateral.
Okay, the classics. Anything else?
Yeah, properties of special right triangles, those 30, 60, 90, and 45, 45, 90 ones. Plus, basic facts, like 360 degrees in a circle, 2 radians, 180 degrees in a triangle.
So you don't need to cram every single formula. That must take some pressure off.
It definitely helps. It lets you focus your brain power on the actual problem solving, not just pure memorization. But again, going back to the calculator, just having the tool isn't enough. The guide stresses using it strategically.
We talked about that, knowing when not to use it.
Right, and also being comfortable with it. Practicing with the same calculator you'll use on test day is really important. It saves time, helps avoid button mashing errors.
Makes sense. Familiarity breeds speed, I guess.
Pretty much, and ultimately, the biggest piece of advice from the guide, the thing it hammers home, practice.
Just doing lots of problems.
Yeah, applying the skills you've learned in school. The guide points out that the math on the SAT isn't like brand new weird math. It's the math you've been doing. Using resources like the official satpractice.org, Khan Academy, doing practice tests, working through exercises, that's how you build the concepts, the skill, and that crucial fluency we talked about earlier.
Okay, so it really comes down to understanding the concepts, knowing the procedures, being fluent, and then practicing applying it all in the context of the test format.
You've nailed it. That's the core message.
So we've really covered a lot of ground here. We started with what good at math means for the SAT, that blend of concept, skill, fluency. We looked at the main content, Heart of Algebra, problem solving and data analysis, Passport to Advanced Math, plus those additional topics. Then we got into the test structure calculator versus no calculator sections, multiple choice versus grid-ins, and finally, the practical stuff. The no penalty policy, the reference formulas, strategic calculator use, and the big one, practice. We've definitely gone through all the key points from Chapter 15 of the guide.
We have. And maybe a final thought to leave people with. We've seen the SAT math test is really about problem solving in context. right? Applying mathematical thinking. What's really interesting is how it tries to measure how you think, not just what answers you know. So the question becomes, beyond just test prep, how can we all get better at using that kind of practical, analytical math thinking in our everyday lives, moving it from the textbook page to, the real world?
That's a great question to chew on. How do these ideas apply to your own learning, your own problem solving? Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the SAT math test. We really appreciate you being part of our last minute lecture family. Until next time, keep digging deeper.